The UK's prisons are massively in crisis. What does this look like? Well, first of all, it's just like there being not enough cells for the number of prisoners, so multiple prisoners are having to share cells for like one person, or like three people having to share a cell for two people, which is just like obviously leads to really big problems with overcrowding and poor quality of life. It looks like prisons being inherently insecure, so being very easy to get drugs, weapons, contraband in, which just leads to violence and problems within the prison and like undermines rehabilitation. It looks like violent criminals being put in cells with non-violent criminals, which potentially putting them in danger. It looks like literally prisoners being accidentally released, as we've seen recently, putting the whole of society potentially in danger from these criminals. Now, obviously, this has massive impacts. If we give people a poor quality of life, potentially undermine their human rights in prison, this just leads to them being more traumatized when they're outside of prison, which just means that they are going to be more likely to have like problems with drugs, abuse, less likely to be able to get a job and be a functioning member of society, which just has massive costs on society in general. It means that people are unsafe when they're in prison, and it means that the whole of society is potentially in danger of unsafe people being released from prison. So, how have we got here? Well, basically, the government has continually cut funding and not kept funding up in line with population increases and prison population increases under a programme of what's known as austerity, showing government cuts funding to public services and benefits. Now, prisons were especially hardly hit because it's very easy to hit prisons, because most people don't really see prisons in their day-to-day life and in their operation, and also people don't really care because it's mostly affecting criminals who generally are perceived as in some way deserving of whatever their situation becomes. However, obviously, as I've explored, there's massive impacts, and there are basically there's a scale of solutions, which at one end is basically the government has to spend loads of money in massively expanding prison capacity, prison security and whatnot in order to be able to maintain the current prison population, all the way down to the opposite end where they can choose to sort of release people from prison early, stop giving as many custodial sentences, focusing on non-custodial sentences, especially for non-violent criminals. But essentially the government doesn't want to do either of these things because it's too afraid of spending more money, which would require probably increased taxation, which they don't want to do. And it's afraid of the other end because that makes them look soft on crime. But the government has to do one of these things, and not doing either of these things is leading to this massively damaging status quo, and we need to challenge this status quo and make sure that our prison problem is finally fixed. And I'm hoping that the recent prison releases are going to shed some light and make it possible for us to finally deliver some positive change to the current completely broken prison system. Thanks for listening to my rant today. A huge thank you to Relatable Memes for promoting this channel independently of this channel. I'm very grateful for the work you're doing specifically promoting this channel, and I'll see you all next time.